5 powerful phrases that disarm arrogant people. What if I told you that arrogance is nothing more than insecurity wearing a crown? Seneca once wrote, "Arrogance is the desire to seem bigger, when in fact you are smaller." 2,000 years later, you and I still see this everywhere, at work, at the dinner table, even scrolling online. And here's the truth. Arrogance only has power if you let it. Picture this. You're in a meeting, presenting an idea you've worked on all week. Before you even finish, a coworker cuts in with a smirk, "That'll never work." The room chuckles. Your chest tightens. Normally, you'd either snap back or go silent. But imagine instead you had a response so calm and unexpected that the arrogance crumbled right in front of everyone. That's what today is about. 5 Stoic-inspired phrases that disarm arrogance without raising your voice, without losing your cool, and without letting someone else hijack your peace. And trust me, the last phrase is so devastatingly effective, it leaves most people speechless. So stay with me until the end. Now, arrogance isn't new. The Stoics faced emperors, generals, and critics whose pride could fill a stadium. Yet their strategy was never to shout louder. Epictetus said, "An insult has no power unless you accept it." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's the blueprint. You don't beat arrogance by outshouting it. You beat it by refusing to play its game. And that's exactly what these phrases do. Phrase 1. You have a right to think that way. Simple, calm, devastating. Arrogance feeds on resistance. The arrogant expect confrontation. They want the back and forth, the clash of egos. But when you respond with, "You have a right to think that way," it's like letting the air out of an overinflated balloon. The conflict dissolves because you refuse to inflate it. Important. This doesn't mean you're agreeing with them. It's subtle. You're acknowledging their perspective without validating it. And in that space, the arrogant suddenly loses the stage they were performing on. That's the Stoic edge, calmness as power. But here's the twist. This isn't just about disarming others. It's also about training yourself. Every time you say this phrase, you're reminding your own mind that someone else's arrogance doesn't have to enter your system. And that's a muscle worth building.
That's an interesting point. You've given me something to think about. Now this one is sneaky. Because on the surface, it sounds like you're praising them, but really, you're pulling the rug out from under their ego. Here's why. The arrogant expect rejection, mockery, or pushback. When instead you meet them with calm curiosity, it scrambles their script. Suddenly, they're not the hammer, and you're not the nail. The conversation shifts. Seneca wrote, "There is nothing so arrogant that it cannot be softened by reason." This phrase is reason disguised as respect. It doesn't submit, but it doesn't resist either. It redirects. Imagine someone belittles you in public, flaunting their intellectual superiority. Everyone expects sparks to fly, but instead you nod and say, "That's an interesting point. You've given me something to think about." The mood changes instantly. The crowd sees it. You're not the one rattled. They are. This is Stoic Aikido, using the weight of their arrogance against them. Phrase 3. I'd prefer to hear more before I respond. This one is an invisible shield. Arrogant people thrive on quick reactions. They want to drag you into the heat of the moment because that's their arena. But when you calmly say, "I'd prefer to hear more before I respond," you pause the game. And in that pause, arrogance dies. Marcus Aurelius said, "The power to live well lies in choosing how we react." This phrase is that choice in action. It shows everyone that you are not controlled by provocation, you are governed by patience. Imagine a heated debate. Someone tries to dominate the room with volume and gestures. Everyone expects you to fight back. Instead, you lean back slightly and say, "I'd prefer to hear more before I respond." The effect? Crushing. The arrogant loses rhythm because you refuse to play speed chess on their terms, and the audience sees who's really in control. The truth is, arrogance cannot survive patience. It feeds on immediacy, and when you remove that, you remove its oxygen. Phrase 4. It's interesting how everyone sees the world differently. This one looks gentle, but don't underestimate it. Arrogance thrives on the illusion of absolute truth, the belief that their opinion is the only valid one. By calmly saying, "It's interesting how everyone sees the world differently," you expose the fragility of that illusion without ever raising your voice. Epictetus taught, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of things." This phrase is a reminder that their arrogance is just one interpretation, not the truth. Imagine a family gathering. Someone insists their opinion is law. You respond, "It's interesting how everyone sees the world differently." Suddenly, the aggressive energy drains, because to push further would make them look intolerant. This is quiet power, the kind that elevates you while leaving the arrogant stranded in their own narrow view.
Phrase 5. If that makes you happy, then that's fine. Now this is the finisher, the knockout punch. The arrogant always want one thing: victory. They want to feel they've dominated. But when you respond with, "If that makes you happy, then that's fine," you refuse to even enter the contest. The fight collapses because you won't play. And here's the secret. This phrase shines a light on their insecurity, because by implying they need this win to feel happy, you reveal the fragility behind the performance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things we give importance to have power over us." By calmly showing you give no importance to their arrogance, you strip it of all power. Imagine a coworker boasting about being better than you at some task. Instead of competing, you smile and say, "If that makes you happy, then that's fine." The arrogance evaporates because they can't argue without revealing how badly they need your validation. This phrase ends the game, not with anger, not with sarcasm, but with unshakable calm. Now let's pause. Did you notice the pattern in all 5? None of them try to dominate. None of them try to win in the usual sense. They all do something more powerful. They keep you in control of yourself. And that's the Stoic victory. Not silencing the arrogant, but silencing the urge in you to be dragged into their chaos. Next, we're going to build on this foundation. Because while these phrases disarm arrogance in the moment, there's a deeper skill that can make you practically untouchable. It's the same Stoic habit Marcus Aurelius used to rule an empire without losing his peace. And it's something you can use starting tonight. Stay with me, because in the next part, I'll share the secret to becoming unbotherable, no matter what anyone says or does. The art of becoming unbotherable. Have you ever had your whole day ruined by just one sarcastic comment? Maybe it was a text that dripped with passive aggression, or a meeting where someone rolled their eyes as you spoke. You replay it again and again, and before you know it, your energy for the entire day is hijacked.
Here's the Stoic truth. It wasn't the text or the eye roll or the comment that hijacked you. It was the moment your inner guard stepped aside and let that negativity march straight into your mind. Most people believe peace comes from avoiding conflict or from surrounding themselves only with agreeable people. But the Stoics, and modern psychology too, would disagree. Peace doesn't come from softer people. It comes from stronger gates. It comes from mastering the art of guarding the doors of your own mind. Epictetus put it this way: when someone provokes you, remember it is your opinion of the thing that provokes you. Remove that, and the anger is gone. That's the fortress mindset. And once you build it, arrogance, disrespect, even insults lose their grip. The gap between trigger and reaction. Picture yourself standing in line at the grocery store. The person ahead of you pulls out a jar of coins. Pennies hit the counter one by one. The cashier counts them at a snail's pace. Your chest tightens. You feel the heat rising. Here's the question. When did you get angry? Was it the coins? The slowness? Or was it the moment your mind whispered, "He's wasting my time"? That tiny gap between what happens and what you tell yourself about it, that's the birthplace of frustration. Not the pennies, not the weight, but your interpretation. Marcus Aurelius called this gap the most important territory of your life. Because if you can master that space, you can master your emotions. Modern psychology backs this up. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That's the gate you have to guard.
Building the inner fortress. So how do you actually do it? How do you stop every careless word from marching into your peace? First, you learn to see the intrusion before it gets in. Next time someone says something arrogant or dismissive, don't react. Just label it. That's an attempt to provoke me. By naming it, you create distance. Suddenly, it's not your emotion, it's just an event you're watching. Second, practice the pause. Literally, breathe in, count to 3, breathe out. In those 3 seconds, you've closed the gate. You've reminded yourself that you don't owe the world a reaction on its timeline. Third, ask yourself, what's actually mine here? The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the dividing line between what belongs to you and what doesn't. Their words, not yours. Their arrogance, not yours. Your reaction, that's yours. Every time you choose to keep what's yours and release what isn't, you strengthen your fortress. The hijacked morning. Let me give you a real-world picture. You wake up, check your phone, and there's an email from your boss with a sharp critique. Your stomach drops. You carry that feeling into breakfast, snap at your spouse, rush the kids out the door, and drive to work already defeated. But pause. Did the email ruin your morning, or did your interpretation? Did the words "needs improvement" have power in themselves? Or did your mind instantly translate them into "I'm failing, I'm in trouble, I'm not good enough"? That's the gap. And once you see it, you can close it. You can reframe. This is feedback, not a verdict. You can breathe, and you can choose not to hand your piece over to a few lines of text. This is the fortress in action. Not perfect walls that never crack, but a gate that you control. What most people get wrong. Here's where most people slip. They confuse calmness with weakness. They think if you don't react, you've been defeated. But the opposite is true. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. People slandered him, betrayed him, even plotted his death. And yet, in his private notes, he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That's not weakness. That's strength most people never reach. When you choose not to react, you're not surrendering. You're refusing to fight a battle that isn't worth your time. You're showing that your inner world is yours alone. Exercises to train the fortress. Tonight, try this. Review the day's insults. Write down the 3 moments that poked your emotions. Then ask, which of these were actually mine to control? Most won't be. Practice the pause. Set a reminder on your phone that simply says, pause. Every time it goes off, stop whatever you're doing and breathe. You're training the gap. Flip the frame. When something bothers you, reframe it. Instead of, they disrespected me, try, they revealed themselves. The more you do this, the faster you close the gate. The unbotherable leader. Think about Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, beaten, mocked, isolated. Yet when he walked free, he wasn't consumed by bitterness. He had built an inner fortress so strong that no jailer could storm it. He once said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." That's Stoicism in practice. He chose not to drink. And when he became president, his calm presence disarmed even his critics, because nothing rattles people more than someone who cannot be rattled. That's the goal here. Not to avoid arrogance or disrespect, but to become so centered that it bounces off your gates. So let's connect this back. In part 1, we explored 5 powerful phrases that disarm arrogance. But phrases are just tools. They only work if your fortress is strong. Because if your gates are wide open, even the cleverest phrase will ring hollow. That's why this lesson matters. Once you master the gap between trigger and reaction, you stop being hijacked. You stop handing out permission slips for other people to ruin your day. And here's the payoff. Once you've built this fortress, you'll discover something astonishing. You don't just handle arrogance better, you handle everything better. Criticism, disrespect, even loss. Because your peace no longer depends on the world behaving itself. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. I'll reveal the backward secret the Stoics used to find freedom. The paradox that the moment you stop trying to control life, you actually gain control over yourself. Stay with me, because that lesson alone can rewrite how you face stress for the rest of your life.
The paradox of control. What if I told you that almost all of your stress comes from one simple mistake? Trying to control things you were never meant to control. Think about it. You can't control traffic, but you rage in the car. You can't control your boss's mood, but you carry his tone home like a weight on your shoulders. You can't control whether your kids listen the first time, but you act as if the universe betrayed you when they don't. The Stoics saw this clearly 2,000 years ago. Epictetus said it best. Some things are in our control and others not. That single sentence, just 8 words, is the foundation of freedom. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control the external world, you gain control over the one thing that matters, yourself. And that is the kind of power no one can take from you.
The tyranny of control. Let's start with this. Control is an illusion. You think you're in control when you send the perfect email, when you plan the perfect weekend, when you line up every detail. But then, the boss ignores your email. The weather ruins your plans. A flat tire cancels your day. And you're left furious. Why? Because you tried to control what was never yours. Marcus Aurelius warned himself of this daily. In Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say you'll find strength once everyone respects you, once the world finally cooperates, once everything goes your way. He said the opposite. Strength comes when you stop wasting energy on what you cannot command. The commute from hell. Picture this. You're driving to work. A car cuts you off and slams on the brakes. Your blood pressure spikes. You shout, maybe even honk. For the next 10 minutes, you stew, imagining what you'd say if you pulled up next to them at a red light. Now pause. Could you control their driving? No. Could you control the traffic? No. What could you control? Only your reaction. But most people hand over their power the second someone else makes a reckless choice. They let a stranger on the freeway own their mood for hours. That's slavery, not freedom. And here's the paradox again. When you stop trying to control the car in front of you, you reclaim control over the one car that actually matters, your own.
What most people get wrong. Most people think freedom means controlling more money, more influence, more followers. But the Stoics saw the trap. The more you try to control, the more chains you wrap around yourself. Because the truth is, the external world will never stop misbehaving. People will still be rude. Projects will still fail. Loved ones will still disappoint you. If your peace depends on controlling them, you will never know peace. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Replace more with control, and the meaning sharpens. It is not the man with little control who is miserable, but the man who craves control over what is not his. Exercises to practice letting go. Here's how you train this paradox into your daily life. 1. The 2-column drill. At the end of the day, write down 2 lists, what I controlled and what I tried to control. Seeing it on paper is sobering. You'll realize most of your frustration came from the second list. 2. The let them rule. Someone cuts in line, let them. Someone shows off, let them. Someone talks too loud, let them. Every let them is a tiny rebellion against the illusion of control. 3. Flip the focus. Each morning ask, what's mine today? Your attitude, your effort, your words. That's it. Make those excellent and watch how much lighter the rest feels. A story of release. A friend once told me about his father, who spent years trying to control every detail of family life. He'd plan the vacations down to the minute, schedule dinner conversations, even dictate which jokes were allowed. And of course, it never worked. Kids rebelled, plans fell apart, everyone walked on eggshells. But then his father had a health scare. Suddenly, he realized how little was truly in his grasp. And in that moment, he let go. He stopped micromanaging. He laughed at interruptions. He let the family dynamic breathe. And ironically, that's when he gained real influence. His kids respected him more. His wife relaxed. The home became peaceful. When he stopped trying to control, he actually became a stronger leader.
That's the paradox in action.
The fortress meets the paradox. Now connect this back to the fortress we talked about in part 2. The fortress is about building strong gates. The paradox is about knowing what to guard. If you spend your life guarding what you cannot control, you'll be exhausted. But if you guard only what is truly yours, your thoughts, your words, your actions, you'll be untouchable. Think of it like this. You're the keeper of a garden. You can't stop storms. You can't stop weeds from growing. But you can choose what seeds you plant, how you water them, and whether you let pests take over. And that's enough. That's all it ever needed to be. The freedom of release. Here's what happens when you practice this paradox. The rude coworker still exists, but he doesn't own your mood. The market still fluctuates, but it doesn't own your peace. The traffic jam still happens, but it doesn't own your blood pressure. You realize you don't have to bend the world into your shape to be okay. You just have to stop bending yourself into knots over what isn't yours. And that is real freedom. So far, we've learned how to disarm arrogance with words, how to build a fortress around your mind, and now how to release control over what was never yours. Together, these aren't just tricks, they're a way of living, a way of walking through life calmer, lighter, stronger. But the Stoics didn't stop there. They knew there's one enemy that tests this practice more than any other: anger. Not just irritation, not just annoyance, but the deep, burning fire that can destroy relationships, reputations, and even your health if you let it run unchecked. And in the next part, I'll show you the Stoic strategies to master anger, so that instead of it mastering you, you can turn it into fuel for wisdom and strength. Stay with me, because anger is where most people fall, and if you conquer it, you'll stand taller than almost anyone you meet. Mastering anger before it masters you. Let's be real. Arrogance is annoying. Disrespect is frustrating. But anger? Anger is different. It's the wildfire of emotions. Once it catches, it spreads fast. It burns bridges, poisons families, wrecks careers. And yet, anger always feels justified in the moment. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Rage. Someone talks down to you in front of others? Fury. Someone betrays your trust? You see red. But here's the hard truth. Anger punishes you more than the person who triggered it. Seneca wrote an entire book on anger, calling it the most hideous and frenzied of all emotions. He warned, anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Think about that. The original insult may sting for a moment, but your anger, that can ruin hours, even years. Which means the insult wasn't the real enemy, your uncontrolled response was. The anatomy of anger. Let's break it down. Anger usually has 3 stages. The spark, something happens, a rude comment, a careless mistake, a disrespectful tone. The fire, your body reacts, faster heartbeat, clenched jaw, rising voice. And the wildfire, you lash out, say or do something you later regret, and the damage spreads. Most people live their lives getting pulled from spark to wildfire in seconds, but the Stoics discovered something game-changing. You can stop the fire in the middle stage. You can interrupt the process. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's not just philosophy, it's strategy. The email that burns. Imagine this. You open your inbox and see a message from your boss. Your presentation was sloppy. Fix it by tomorrow. Instantly, your heart races. You want to fire back. Do you have any idea how hard I worked? You type out a furious reply. But then, you pause. You remember the spark, fire, wildfire model. You realize you're in stage 2, not 3. You haven't hit send yet. And in that pause, you regain control. Instead of burning the bridge, you breathe. You draft a calmer response. You decide to clarify expectations instead of attack. By doing that,
You've just turned a potential wildfire into a controlled flame. That pause is where mastery lives.
The Stoic toolkit for anger. So how do you train yourself to catch anger before it catches you? Here are 3 timeless tools. Delay the reaction. Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Next time you feel the fire rising, step away. Even 10 seconds can cool the spark. Lower the stakes. Ask yourself, will this matter a week from now, a year from now? 90% of what we get angry about doesn't matter past the day. Flip the perspective. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to ask what must have happened in their life for them to act this way. Shifting from judgment to curiosity weakens the fire. These aren't tricks, they're training methods. Every time you delay, reframe, or lower the stakes, you're teaching your mind, I don't have to burn. The Emperor's patience. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal constantly. Governors lied, soldiers disobeyed, even close friends turned against him. But in his private journal, he never cursed them. Instead, he wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's remarkable. A man with the power of life and death over others, and instead of unleashing wrath, he disciplined himself to remain calm. Not because he was weak, but because he knew anger would only harm his judgment. If the most powerful man in the world could resist anger, so can we. What most people get wrong. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They think controlling anger means suppressing it. But suppression is dangerous. It's like putting a lid on boiling water. The pressure builds until it explodes. The Stoics weren't about bottling anger up. They were about transforming it. Think of it like fire. Left unchecked, it destroys. But contained, it cooks food, forges steel, lights the way. Anger, when mastered, becomes energy. It can fuel action, drive change, power progress. But only if you're the one holding the torch, not the other way around.
Training for real life. Here's how you can practice tonight. Rehearse the pause. Think back to the last time you exploded. Replay it. Now imagine hitting pause right before you spoke. What could you have done differently? Run that scene until the new response feels natural. Anchor with breath. Choose a physical anchor for anger. For example, when you feel rage rising, press your thumb and finger together while taking one deep breath. Train your body to connect that anchor with calmness. Journal the sparks. Each night, list the top 3 sparks of the day. Did they reach wildfire? If not, why? If yes, how can you catch it earlier next time? This isn't theory, it's rewiring. The more you practice, the more automatic calmness becomes. A story of transformation. There was a man I knew who was infamous for his temper. At work, everyone tiptoed around him. At home, his family lived in fear of his outbursts. But after reading Marcus Aurelius, he made one decision. No angry email could ever leave his inbox within 24 hours. The first few weeks were brutal. He'd write fiery drafts ready to send. But then he'd wait. By the next morning, 9 out of 10 times he'd delete them. He realized most of his anger was temporary, but the damage of sending it would have been permanent. Over time, this habit changed his life. His coworkers began to respect him. His family noticed he was calmer. He hadn't lost his fire. He had mastered it.
So far, we've seen how to disarm arrogance with phrases, how to build a fortress for your mind, how to let go of control, and now how to master anger.
And here's the connection. Arrogance, disrespect, and control issues all thrive on your anger. If they can light that fire in you, they win. But if you learn to pause, to reframe, to redirect, suddenly the fire works for you, not against you. In the next part, we'll build on this by tackling another hidden thief of peace, comparison. Because if anger burns you from the outside in, comparison eats you from the inside out. And the Stoics had a radical cure for it, one that can free you from the endless trap of measuring your worth against everyone else. Stay with me, because once you conquer comparison, you'll never look at status, success, or envy the same way again. Escaping the trap of comparison. Have you ever noticed how quickly joy disappears the moment you start comparing yourself to someone else? You were proud of your new car until your neighbor drove home with something shinier. You felt good about your promotion until you saw someone on LinkedIn with a bigger title. You enjoyed dinner with your family until you scrolled Instagram and saw another family's perfect vacation. Comparison is the silent thief of peace. It turns wins into losses and gratitude into resentment. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against this trap when he wrote, "Do not waste time worrying about what others say or how they live. Concern yourself only with how you live according to nature." The Stoics understood that comparison is slavery, because every time you measure your worth against someone else's, you've handed them the ruler.
The illusion of status. Let's get honest. Society runs on status games. Bigger house, better job, more followers, nicer clothes. From childhood, we're trained to compete in these invisible contests. But here's the paradox. Even when you win, you lose. Why? Because there's always someone higher up the ladder. Seneca said, "He is a great man who uses earthenware dishes as if they were silver, but he is equally great who uses silver dishes as if they were earthenware." Translation, greatness isn't in the object, it's in your attitude toward it. When you stop chasing status, you stop being enslaved by it. The social media spiral. Picture this. You wake up, scroll Instagram, and see a friend on a yacht. You look down at your coffee, your messy kitchen, your to-do list. Suddenly, your life feels smaller. But pause. Did your life change in that moment? Or did only your perspective change? This is what Marcus was warning against. He didn't have Instagram, but he had Rome, a city full of displays of wealth, power, and beauty. And yet, he wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The Stoics knew that happiness doesn't come from standing taller than others, but from standing steady within yourself. What most people get wrong. Most people think comparison is motivation. Look at him, I should push harder. Look at her, I need to catch up. But here's the trap. Comparison-driven motivation is unstable, because if your fire only burns when you're behind someone, you'll never feel at peace. Even when you succeed, you'll need someone else to stay ahead of you to fuel your drive. That's not strength, that's dependency. The Stoics saw comparison for what it really is, a distraction from your own path.
The Stoic antidote to comparison. So what's the cure? 3 practices. 1. Define your own scorecard. Instead of asking, "Am I doing better than them?" ask, "Am I living by my principles today?" If you lived with courage, honesty, and discipline, you've already won. 2. Practice negative visualization. The Stoics often imagined losing what they had: health, home, friends. This wasn't pessimism, it was gratitude training.
because the moment you imagine losing something, you realize how much it already means. 3. Celebrate. Don't compare. When someone else wins, don't make it about you. Train yourself to say, "Good for them." Their success doesn't shrink your life, it expands what's possible in the world. The athlete who let go. Think about Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian in history. For years, he admitted, his happiness was chained to medals. When he won, he felt relief, not joy. When he lost, he spiraled into depression. It wasn't until he redefined his scorecard, focusing on personal discipline and mental health, that he found peace beyond comparison. That shift is Stoic at its core. It's the realization that victory is internal, not external. Exercises to break the habit. Tonight, try this. The 3 Wins Journal. Each evening, write down 3 things you did well today, independent of anyone else. Even small wins count. This rewires your brain to measure yourself against yourself. The Gratitude Walk. Go outside and notice 5 things you'd miss if they disappeared tomorrow. This kills envy and breeds appreciation. The Comparison Catch. Every time you catch yourself comparing, say out loud, "That's their path, not mine." Hearing it reinforces the separation. Do this daily, and slowly the comparison reflex loses its grip. A story of liberation. Once, I knew a man who constantly compared himself to his brother. His brother earned more, traveled more, seemed more respected, and no matter what he achieved, it never felt enough. One day, his mentor asked him, "If your brother didn't exist, would your life feel different?" That question cracked something open. He realized the weight he carried wasn't his life. It was the scoreboard he'd borrowed. He started focusing only on what he controlled: his work, his relationships, his values. And within months, he said something powerful. "For the first time, I feel free." That's the Stoic cure. Comparison dissolves the moment you stop renting your worth from someone else's victories.
So far, we've explored how to disarm arrogance, build an inner fortress, release false control, master anger, and now escape the trap of comparison. And here's the deeper pattern. Each of these isn't about controlling the outer world. They're about mastering your inner one. Arrogance, anger, envy, disrespect, none of them have power unless you hand it over. But there's another thief of peace we need to tackle: people-pleasing. Because even when you escape comparison, you might still be living for approval. And nothing chains a man faster than the fear of losing others' validation. In the next part, I'll show you the Stoic way to stop people-pleasing for good, without becoming cold or selfish. It's about building standards, boundaries, and a spine of steel that earns respect without ever begging for it. Stay with me, because this next shift can change not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. The end of people-pleasing. Let me ask you something. How many times this week did you say yes when you wanted to say no? Maybe a coworker dumped extra tasks on your desk and you nodded along. Maybe a friend asked for a favor that cost you time you didn't have. Maybe at home, you gave in, even when you knew it wasn't right for you. On the surface, it looks kind. But underneath, it drains you. Because people-pleasing isn't generosity, it's fear disguised as virtue. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being enough. And the Stoics would say that fear is slavery. Epictetus warned, if you want to improve,
Be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, stop shaping your life around other people's approval. The hidden cost of pleasing. Here's the problem with people-pleasing. The more you bend, the less respect you earn. Why? Because when you signal that your boundaries can always be crossed, people stop valuing you. They may like you for what you give them, but they won't respect you for who you are. And respect, especially self-respect, is the foundation of a strong life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That means standing firm in your values, not bending every time someone pushes.
The office pushover. Imagine this. Your boss always asks you to stay late. At first, you agree to prove your dedication. Soon, it becomes the expectation. Your coworkers leave on time. You're still at your desk. At home, your family sees less of you. Your health suffers. And worst of all, your boss doesn't thank you because now your sacrifice is invisible. That's the trap of people-pleasing. What starts as generosity becomes exploitation. And here's the twist. The moment you finally set a boundary, people may resist, not because you're wrong, but because you've trained them to expect endless compliance. But long-term, boundaries breed respect. What most people get wrong. Most people think saying no makes you selfish, but selfishness is doing what serves you at the expense of others. Boundaries are different. They serve both sides because they create clarity. Seneca said, "He who seeks wisdom is already wise." Seeking wisdom means knowing when your yes is true and when it's fear. If your yes comes from fear, it's not kindness, it's self-betrayal. The Stoic way of boundaries. So how do you end people-pleasing without becoming cold? 3 steps. 1. Clarify your standards. Decide what matters most: family time, health, your integrity. These are non-negotiables. Write them down. If you don't define them, others will define them for you. Use calm no's. A boundary doesn't need fireworks. It can be as simple as, "I can't take that on right now," or "That doesn't work for me." Calm, firm, no apology required. Live the example. When others see you protecting your standards, they may resist at first, but over time, they'll respect you more, because respect always follows self-respect. The Stoic leader at home. A father I once knew was always the yes man. Extra projects at work? Yes. Coaching every team? Yes. Hosting family events? Yes. The result? Burnout, frustration, quiet resentment. But then he read Epictetus and decided on one standard. Dinner with his family was sacred. No work calls, no interruptions. At first, his coworkers resisted, but eventually they adapted. And at home, his kids began to see a present father, not a tired shell. His no gave more to his family than 100 empty yeses ever could. That's Stoic boundaries in action.
Exercises to strengthen boundaries. Try this tonight. The yes audit. Write down everything you said yes to this week. Which ones came from fear, not choice? Boundary script. Practice saying, "That doesn't work for me," in the mirror until it feels natural. Confidence comes from rehearsal. And the weekly standard. Pick one non-negotiable for this week. Protect it fiercely. Notice how it changes how people respond to you. Over time, these small acts of courage build a spine of steel. A story of respect earned. One man told me he spent years chasing his girlfriend's approval. He paid for everything, bent to her moods, rearranged his life around her needs. But eventually she left. When he asked why, her answer cut deep. "You never stood for anything." That's the painful truth of people-pleasing. It doesn't secure love, it erodes it. Months later, he rebuilt himself with Stoic practice. He set standards. He stopped apologizing for existing. And when he entered a new relationship, the dynamic was different. She respected him. Not because he bent, but because he stood firm. That's the paradox. You don't earn loyalty by giving everything. You earn it by respecting yourself enough to say enough. So, we've learned how to disarm arrogance, build your fortress, release false control, master anger, escape comparison, and now end the trap of people-pleasing. Notice the theme? Each lesson isn't about controlling others, it's about reclaiming control over yourself. You stop handing out pieces of your dignity, and suddenly people start respecting you more. But there's another battle most people never see coming. The battle with solitude. Because even if you win against arrogance, anger, comparison, and people-pleasing, you may still crumble when you're alone. And in the next part, we'll explore why solitude isn't a weakness, it's the training ground of the Stoic warrior. Once you learn to walk alone, you'll never be dependent on crowds for your strength again. Stay with me, because solitude may be the most powerful skill you ever master.
The power of walking alone. Most people are terrified of being alone, not just physically, but emotionally. Silence makes them restless. Empty space makes them anxious. That's why they fill every moment with noise, scrolling, texting, Netflix, podcasts, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But here's the paradox. The more you avoid solitude, the weaker you become. Because if you can't stand alone, you'll always be at the mercy of the crowd. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." Solitude isn't loneliness. Solitude is strength. It's the training ground where you sharpen your mind, strengthen your will, and return to the world with clarity. The fear of solitude. Why do most people fear solitude? Because it strips away the distractions that hide their insecurities. When you're alone, you can't blame the noise of others for your restlessness. You're forced to face yourself, to confront your own doubts, your own regrets, your own untrained mind. That's uncomfortable, but it's also the path to growth. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." Notice what he's saying. Yes, community matters, but you can't bring strength to others if you've never built it in solitude. The fear of silence. Picture this. You're home alone. No meetings, no kids, no calls. The house is quiet. Within 5 minutes, you grab your phone, you scroll, you text, you check the news. Why? Because silence feels unbearable. But imagine if, instead, you sat with that silence. 10 minutes, 20, an hour. At first, the mind screams, but slowly the noise settles. Your breathing deepens. Your thoughts untangle. You start to see things clearly. That's not loneliness, that's strength emerging.
What most people get wrong. Most people think solitude means withdrawing from the world forever, becoming a hermit, rejecting society. That's not Stoicism. The Stoics were deeply engaged with the world. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. Seneca advised emperors. Epictetus taught crowds. But they all trained in solitude. Why? Because solitude is where you recharge your inner strength so you can re-enter the world without being consumed by it. Think of it like this. Solitude is the gym of the soul. You don't live at the gym, but you don't skip it either. The Stoic practices of solitude. So, how do you turn solitude from fear into fuel? 3 practices. 1. Morning reflection. Before checking your phone, sit in silence and ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Write it down. That's your compass. 2. Evening review. At night, reflect, where did I live according to my values? Where did I fall short? No judgment, just clarity. 3. Digital fasts. Choose 1 hour a day without screens. Use it to read, write, or simply think. Over time, extend it. Marcus did this every night, writing his private journal. Those pages became Meditations, the book that still guides millions today. The athlete in solitude. Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players, was famous for practicing alone in empty gyms before dawn. Why? Because solitude stripped away the noise. It was just him, the ball, and the standard he set for himself. That discipline, forged in solitude, made him unstoppable in front of millions. The Stoics would say, if you can't train alone, you'll never stand strong in the crowd. Exercises to embrace solitude. Tonight, try this. 1. 10 minutes of stillness. Sit in silence with no phone, no music, no distractions. Notice the restlessness, then let it fade. 2. The solitude walk. Take a 20-minute walk without headphones. Let your thoughts breathe. 3. Write your meditations. Each night, write 1 page reflecting on your day. Don't perform, be brutally honest. Do this consistently, and solitude will stop being something you fear. It will become your edge.
A story of liberation. I once knew a man who couldn't stand being alone. He bounced from relationship to relationship, friendship to friendship, always terrified of silence. One day, after a breakup, he decided to spend 30 days without chasing companionship. He journaled, he took walks, he faced his own restless thoughts. At first, it was hell, but by the end, he said something life-changing. For the first time, I realized I'm enough, even when no one else is around. That's what solitude teaches. You don't need the crowd to confirm your worth. So far, we've seen how to disarm arrogance, build your fortress, release false control, master anger, escape comparison, stop people-pleasing, and now embrace solitude. But solitude reveals another truth. Once you stop needing people, you discover who truly deserves to be in your life. Some people lift you up, others drain you, and the Stoics had no illusions about this. Some relationships are toxic, and if you cling to them, you'll drown with them. In the next part, we'll confront this head-on, how to walk away from toxic people with dignity, and why their regret is not your responsibility. Stay with me, because this lesson could save you years of wasted energy. Walking away with dignity. You've been good to the wrong people. We all have. You gave your time, your loyalty, your energy, sometimes even your soul to people who didn't see it as a gift, but as a resource they were entitled to. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for permission, your silence for surrender. And when you finally pulled back, when you stopped pouring yourself into their endless demands, they were shocked because they never imagined the well of your generosity could run dry. But here's the truth. Even the deepest well runs dry if it's drained without care. And when it does, your withdrawal becomes the loudest lesson you'll ever teach. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Epictetus said, if someone tries to take what is not theirs, don't be angry, simply don't give it. That's not bitterness, that's clarity.
The trap of endless giving. Let's be clear. Kindness is a strength, but unguarded kindness can be exploited. Most people trapped in toxic relationships believe more giving will solve the problem. If I love harder, they'll change. If I forgive again, they'll see my worth. But toxic people don't change when you give more. They change when you stop. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." How much of your life has been wasted trying to prove your value to those who never valued you? The one-sided friendship. Imagine this. You're always the one reaching out, always the one helping them move, listening to their drama, covering the bill. And when you need help, silence, excuses, disappearing acts. You tell yourself they'll come around, but deep down, you know the truth. It's not a friendship, it's a transaction, and you're the one always paying. The Stoic answer isn't revenge, it's withdrawal. Quietly, firmly, you stop feeding what drains you. Your absence will speak louder than your words. What most people get wrong. Here's the mistake. People think walking away means hate. They think it means burning bridges or holding grudges. But that's not Stoicism. That's just another form of attachment. The Stoics didn't advocate revenge. They advocated release. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best way of avenging yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer." Walking away isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting yourself. So how do you do it without bitterness? 3 steps. 1. Recognize the pattern. Ask yourself, does this person give as much as they take? If not, stop pretending it's balanced. 2. Withdraw quietly. You don't need a dramatic exit speech. Just stop giving what is abused. Your absence will speak louder than your words. 3. Reclaim your energy. Pour what you once gave to them into your own growth, your health, your craft, your true relationships. That's not cruelty. That's discipline. The silent exit. I knew a man who spent years bending for his so-called friends. They'd borrow money, crash at his house, use his car. But when he needed help, when his father passed away, not one of them showed up. He was crushed. But instead of exploding, he chose silence. No angry messages, no revenge. He simply stopped showing up for them. At first, they didn't notice. But months later, when their crises came, and he was nowhere to be found, regret hit them like a wave. He didn't need to punish them. Their regret was the punishment. And he was free. Exercises to practice letting go. Tonight, try this. The energy audit. Write down the 5 people who take the most from you. Ask, do they give back? If not, reduce your investment. The silent step. For 1 week, stop chasing someone who never reciprocates. See what happens. Reinvest. Take the time and energy you saved and pour it into someone who actually lifts you up, or into yourself. You'll be shocked how quickly your life feels lighter. A story of strength. There was a woman who gave everything to her partner: support, money, time. But he cheated, lied, drained her spirit. She tried to fix it, tried to forgive, tried to hold on. Until one day, she remembered Epictetus. If you want to be loved, love yourself first. She walked away. No shouting, no revenge, just dignity. Months later, he begged her back. But by then, she was gone, not just physically, but emotionally. She had reclaimed herself. That's the power of letting go. You don't just free yourself, You force the other person to face the emptiness they created.
So far, we've explored how to disarm arrogance, build your fortress, release false control, master anger, escape comparison, stop people-pleasing, embrace solitude, and now walk away from toxic people with dignity. Here's the bigger picture. Each step has been about reclaiming your energy. Because the truth is, your peace is precious. And every arrogant remark, every toxic person, every comparison, every unguarded yes, they're all just leaks in the container of your life. Seal those leaks, and suddenly you have strength you didn't know you had. But we're not done yet. There's one more test that can undo even the strongest person: chaos. Life storms, financial stress, health scares, family conflict that spirals out of control. Times when everything hits at once and peace feels impossible. But in the next part, we'll learn how to remain calm in chaos, the way Marcus Aurelius did while ruling an empire in crisis. And once you master this, you'll discover a calm so deep it feels like a superpower. Stay with me, because this next lesson could be the anchor you rely on for the rest of your life. Calm in chaos. Life doesn't always attack you with small annoyances. Sometimes it hits like a storm, a financial crisis, a health scare, a family conflict that spirals out of control. In those moments, calm feels impossible. The heart races, the mind spins, the walls close in. And yet, the Stoics believed that these storms are the ultimate training ground. Marcus Aurelius ruled during wars, plagues, and betrayals. And in his private notes, he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the storm outside is never as dangerous as the storm inside. And if you can quiet the inner storm, the outer one loses its grip.
The midnight call. Imagine this. You're asleep. At 2 a.m., the phone rings. It's a family emergency. Your chest tightens. Your mind races. Your body wants to sprint into chaos. But pause. What can you control right now? Not the emergency itself, not the actions of others, only your breathing, your clarity, your next choice. By focusing on what is yours, you anchor yourself. You stay useful, not frantic. And in crises, usefulness is everything. That's what Marcus meant. You may not stop the storm, but you can stop becoming another part of it. What most people get wrong. Most people think calm means not feeling emotions. But calm doesn't mean numbness. The Stoics weren't statues. They felt fear, grief, pain, but they refused to let those emotions dictate their actions. Seneca said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Most people live this daily, suffering twice, once from the event and again from their imagination. The Stoic way is to suffer once and only when necessary. So how do you remain calm in chaos? 3 steps. 1. Ground in the present. Chaos lives in the mind's predictions. What if this gets worse? What if I can't handle it? Pull yourself back. What is the reality right now? 2. Control the controllable. Make a list. What's mine? What's not? Act on what's yours. Release the rest. 3. Anchor with rituals. Breathwork, journaling, physical routines. Anchors that remind your body we are steady even when life isn't. Marcus anchored himself by writing. You can anchor yourself in whatever practice keeps your mind centered.
The calm in crisis. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. President John F. Kennedy faced unimaginable pressure. While generals urged immediate aggression, Kennedy slowed the process. He paused. He thought. He weighed. And by choosing calm over panic, he helped prevent catastrophe. That pause, that stoic separation between impulse and action, may have saved millions of lives. Exercises for chaos training.
Try this. Controlled exposure. Put yourself in small stresses. Cold showers, hard workouts, fasting. These microstorms train your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. Breathing drill. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Box breathing. Use it in the moment to lower the body's alarm. Crisis journal. Each time chaos strikes, write down what actually happened and what your mind exaggerated. Over time, you'll see the difference clearly. A story of transformation. A man I knew lost his job unexpectedly. At first, panic consumed him. Bills, family, future, it all felt doomed. But he remembered the Stoic practice. He made 2 lists, mine and not mine. On mine, his daily job search, his networking, his mindset. On not mine, the economy, the layoffs, the market. He focused relentlessly on his side of the list. Within 3 months, he landed a new role. And he said later, it wasn't the job that saved me, it was learning how to stay calm long enough to find it. That's the essence of Stoic calm, not controlling outcomes, but controlling yourself long enough to keep moving forward. So far, we've explored how to disarm arrogance, guard your mind, release false control, master anger, escape comparison, stop people-pleasing, embrace solitude, walk away from toxicity, and now remain calm in chaos. But there's one final lesson that ties everything together. The Stoics didn't just want us to survive life, they wanted us to thrive with dignity. And their ultimate secret is this: freedom isn't found in possessions, or power, or status. It's found in virtue, living in harmony with your highest self no matter what life throws at you. In the final part, we'll bring all of this together into a single Stoic action plan: how to live free, unbothered, respected, and calm, not tomorrow, not someday, but starting today. Stay with me, because this last piece is the keystone that holds the entire Stoic way of life together. The Stoic blueprint for lasting freedom. We've walked a long road together, from disarming arrogance to building your inner fortress, from mastering anger to walking away from toxic people, from embracing solitude to staying calm in chaos. Each lesson has been a piece of the Stoic puzzle. But now it's time to step back and see the full picture, because Stoicism isn't just about surviving life's storms, it's about living with freedom, dignity, and strength, no matter what comes your way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of the Stoic life, and it's the essence of the blueprint we're about to lay out. The 4 pillars of the Stoic blueprint for lasting freedom. The Stoics believed that true freedom rests on 4 unshakable pillars. Let's bring them together. 1. Wisdom. Seeing reality clearly, knowing what's yours to control and what's not. 2. Courage. Acting rightly, even when it's hard, facing anger, chaos, and fear with strength. 3. Justice. Treating others fairly, not as they deserve, but as your character requires. 4. Temperance. Mastering desires and emotions so they serve you, not enslave you. Every exercise, every phrase, every practice we've covered ties back to these 4.
The Daily Stoic Action Plan. So how do you live this out, starting today? Here's a simple framework. Morning compass. Begin the day by asking, what kind of man do I want to be today? Write it down. Keep it with you. Midday check-in. Pause once, even for 1 minute. Breathe. Ask, am I living by my compass or drifting? Evening review. At night, write, where did I win today? Where did I lose? What can I do better tomorrow? That's it. 3 anchors. Repeat them daily, and slowly your life aligns with Stoic freedom. The Stoic professional. Let's imagine a man who works in a high-pressure corporate job. He faces arrogance in meetings, chaos in projects, and constant comparison with coworkers.
Before Stoicism, he snaps at colleagues, brings stress home, loses sleep. But after adopting the blueprint, his life changes. In meetings, he uses calm phrases to disarm arrogance. When projects collapse, he applies the dichotomy of control, acting on what's his and letting go of the rest. At home, he protects family time with clear boundaries. At night, he journals his wins and failures, training himself to improve without shame. Within months, his colleagues respect him more. His family sees a calmer presence. And most importantly, he respects himself. That's the transformation Stoicism brings. What most people get wrong. Here's the mistake. People think Stoicism means detachment, coldness, isolation, shutting off emotions. But true Stoicism isn't about feeling less. It's about being mastered less. You still feel anger, joy, sadness, love, but you feel them as a master, not as a slave. Seneca said, "No man is free who is a slave to his body." We can expand that. No man is free who is a slave to his emotions, his comparisons, or his fears. Freedom is mastery, and mastery is practice. The ripple effect of Stoicism. When you live this way, something remarkable happens. You stop being reactive, and people notice. Your coworkers wonder how you stay calm when others snap. Your family feels safer around your steady presence. Your friends come to you for advice, not trauma. Without bragging, without posturing, without arrogance, you begin to radiate respect. Not because you demand it, but because you embody it. That's why the Stoics said the best revenge is not to be like your enemy, because your calmness itself becomes the answer.
Exercises for integration. If you want to lock this in, here are 3 integration practices. The Stoic pause. Anytime you feel provoked, pause for 3 breaths before acting. The gratitude drill. Each morning, name 3 things you already have that you'd grieve if lost. The weekly solitude hour. Spend 1 uninterrupted hour each week in solitude, writing, reflecting, or just sitting. These aren't chores, they're training sessions. Each one builds your inner muscles of freedom. A story of transformation. I knew a man who spent years chained to anger, comparison, and people-pleasing. Every insult cut him, every failure crushed him, every rejection haunted him. But when he began practicing Stoicism, slowly things shifted. He didn't transform overnight, but day by day, he learned to pause, to reflect, to stand firm. Months later, when his company went through massive layoffs, he was calm. When friends betrayed him, he walked away with dignity. When life threw storms, he bent but never broke. And he told me, for the first time, I feel free. That's what Stoicism promises, not a life without storms, but a life where no storm owns you. So let's close this journey. You now know how to disarm arrogance without anger, how to guard your mind like a fortress, how to stop chasing control you never had, how to master anger before it masters you, how to break free from comparison, how to end people-pleasing with dignity, how to find power in solitude, how to walk away from toxic people, how to remain calm in chaos, and finally, how to integrate it all into a Stoic blueprint for lasting freedom. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's your call to action. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. If this journey resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe for more Stoic lessons. Share this video with someone who needs calm in their storm, and tell me in the comments, which Stoic practice are you starting today? Because remember, resilience is not born, it's built, and you have the tools to build it now. Stay strong, stay calm, and live free.